He was one of the richest men in the room, yet in that moment none of it mattered. A Japanese billionaire began choking at a luxury dinner table, gasping for air as panic spread. A doctor was present, but seconds passed, and nothing happened. Eyes watched. Some looked away. Others hesitated because of who he was and where he came from. As his life slipped away, one unexpected person made a choice that changed everything. What happened next exposed a silent truth about bias, power, and humanity that few want to talk about. Why was help delayed? And who finally stepped in? The dinner was supposed to be uneventful. A private reservation at an upscale restaurant, soft lighting, polished silverware, and quiet conversations floating through the air. For the Japanese billionaire, this was routine. He had built companies across continents, sat in rooms where decisions moved markets, and learned to stay composed wherever he went. Wealth had opened doors, but it had never erased the subtle distance he often felt in places where he stood out. To the staff, he was just another foreign guest in an expensive suit. Some were attentive. Others were distant, professional but cold. It wasn't obvious enough to confront, just quiet enough to ignore. He noticed the looks, the hesitation, the way respect seemed conditional. Still, he said nothing. Years of success had taught him that silence was often easier than calling out what couldn't be proven. Around him, the restaurant moved smoothly. Plates arrived. Glasses were refilled. Time slowed into comfort. No one could have predicted how fragile that calm really was. Moments before the incident, nothing felt urgent. No alarms. No warning signs. Just another bite of food, another ordinary second in a carefully controlled environment. Yet beneath the surface, something darker lingered. The unspoken question of who would matter if something went wrong. Because when crisis strikes, it doesn't just reveal fear. It exposes priorities, bias, and the uncomfortable truth of who people choose to save first. And when that moment arrived, the room would be forced to show exactly where it stood. The choking began quietly. At first, it looked like discomfort, an instinctive pause, a hand lifting slightly, a breath that didn't arrive on time. Then his posture stiffened. Color drained from his face. The room continued moving around him, unaware that something was terribly wrong. He tried to steady himself, but the pressure in his chest grew violent and unforgiving. Each second stretched longer than the last. Panic surged, sharp and immediate, but help did not. Nearby tables noticed the movement and then looked away, unsure, uncomfortable. Attention drifted elsewhere, as if not seeing was safer than being involved. Someone identified as a medical professional was present. Eyes turned. Expectations rose. Then nothing happened. No urgency. No action. Time slipped through the room unnoticed, even as his body began to betray him. His breathing turned erratic. His vision blurred. The power and prestige that defined his life meant nothing now. In that moment, he was reduced to a foreign man in distress, struggling silently while surrounded by people. The hesitation was not loud or dramatic. It was subtle, careful, almost polite, the kind of delay that could be explained away later, the kind rooted in assumptions that never get spoken out loud. Was it uncertainty? Was it fear? Or was it something deeper? An instinctive distance that made his emergency feel less urgent than it should have been? The seconds piled up. His hands trembled. His chair scraped faintly against the floor. The restaurant's calm atmosphere became suffocating, not just for him, but for anyone willing to truly look. Yet most did not. Some glanced briefly, then returned to their plates. Others waited for someone else to take responsibility. As his strength faded, so did the illusion that help was coming in time. The injustice wasn't just the choking. It was the waiting, the unspoken calculation of worth, the quiet decision-making happening all around him while his life slipped further out of reach. Then, from the edge of the room, movement cut through the paralysis. A waitress noticed what others had chosen not to see. She was not the most powerful person there, not the most educated, not the most respected, but she recognized danger without hesitation. She moved quickly, pushing past the invisible barrier that had frozen everyone else. In that instant, the room's hierarchy collapsed. Training manuals, titles, and assumptions became irrelevant. There was only urgency, only instinct, only a human life at risk. As she stepped forward, uncertainty rippled through the room. Some watched in disbelief. Others felt a flicker of shame. No one knew if she would succeed. No one knew if it was already too late. And as she reached him, while others stood still, the question hung heavy in the air. Why did it take someone with the least authority to show the most courage? The moment shattered whatever calm remained. His body lurched forward as oxygen vanished completely, every instinct screaming for air that would not come. The room finally understood, but understanding arrived late. Chairs scraped back. Faces stiffened with fear. The silence that had protected hesitation now amplified panic. The doctor still did not move fast enough. Training, reputation, and authority collapsed under pressure. Seconds mattered now. Each one carved deeper into his lungs, into his future. His vision narrowed, edges darkening, thoughts slipping into fragments. Power, wealth, status, none of it could buy breath. The waitress acted without permission, without status, without hesitation. She stepped into the space others avoided, anchoring him as his strength gave out. The room froze as she took control, her movements urgent and precise. Every heartbeat thundered. Every second stretched unbearably long. This was the turning point, the moment where prejudice met consequence, where silent bias became deadly delay, where a life hung between action and apathy. As pressure built, the restaurant held its breath with him. Onlookers watched, some in shock, others in quiet reckoning. The realization spread. If she failed, this would not just be a tragedy. It would be an indictment. Proof of what happens when humanity hesitates because of assumptions no one admits to having. Then his body reacted. A violent gasp tore through the silence. The tension cracked. But nothing was certain yet. Relief hovered just out of reach, fragile and incomplete. In that instant, the room changed forever. Not because a man nearly died, but because everyone saw unmistakably who chose to act when it mattered most, and who did not. And as the truth settled in, one question lingered heavier than the air he fought to reclaim. What would this moment cost them all? Once the danger passed and accountability began. The crisis ended, but nothing returned to normal. Breath slowly came back to him, shallow at first, then steady. His body survived, but the moment left a permanent mark. What stayed with him wasn't just the fear of choking. It was the realization of how close he came to disappearing in a room full of people who had the power to help, yet waited. The restaurant resumed its rhythm, but something had shifted. The silence felt heavier now. The looks people avoided carried meaning. Some recognized what had happened and felt the weight of it settle in their chest. Others moved on quickly, eager to forget how hesitation nearly became a death sentence. For the billionaire, the incident stripped away illusions he had carried for years. Success had given him access but not equality. Respect had been present until it was tested. In his most vulnerable moment, he wasn't seen as a human in danger first. He was seen as different, as other, and that difference almost cost him his life. The waitress returned to her duties quietly, without praise or spotlight. She hadn't acted for recognition. She acted because she saw a life worth saving, without calculation, without bias. Her choice exposed a truth far bigger than one restaurant, one country, or one night. This wasn't an isolated moment. It was a reflection of something deeper. Racism isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it appears as hesitation, as doubt, as the deadly pause before action. And those pauses happen every day, in hospitals, in streets, in workplaces, often with irreversible consequences. The question this story leaves behind is uncomfortable, but necessary. When the moment comes, when someone's life depends on speed, courage, and humanity, will we act without bias? Or will we hesitate and call it something else? Because the difference between survival and tragedy is often decided in silence. If the story moved you, let it be a reminder that change begins with awareness. Every voice matters, including yours. So if you believe stories like this need to be heard, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more eye-opening stories just like this one. Your support helps bring these truths into the light.